Hi everybody, this is Debbie from Reflections on the Dance. I'm going to switch screens here. I find that I need to switch screens because I'm not able to look, I have trouble looking at the camera and talking and being natural when I'm seeing myself stare back at me on the computer screen. It's kind of like, as a dancer, if you watch yourself in the mirror too much, you lose the effect. But if it comes from within and you move to the music from within, it comes out much more naturally. So that's what I'm hoping will happen here, is I'm able to not see myself. Anyways, I wanted to kind of share my heart a little bit and go into some things that I'm hoping will bring all of you some comfort and some peace. I realize that everyone's emotions are very high right now, kind of all over the place. There's a range of emotions from being ecstatic over the fact that Murray will have to face trial now, to being very angry. I know some of you are not happy with the charges, and I do understand that, and we've kind of discussed that a little bit as to why those charges were chosen, and I'm not really going to go into that in this video, but I wanted to kind of talk about a couple of things. One is, I have some notes here to keep me on track. One is how Reflections, how the website came about. For quite a while, for about 20 years, I have wanted to interview Michael Jackson. As most of you know, I'm a writer, and just the last couple of years I started specializing in entertainment writing. Prior to that, well over 20 years ago, I still had hoped that I would be able to interview him to tell his story. But at that point, I wasn't even writing. I was working at an office as a receptionist. I had no connections whatsoever, no way of making that a reality. And then it's just probably within the year and a half or so before Michael passed, that I started specializing in entertainment journalism. Prior to that, I did do some entertainment journalism. It was mostly contemporary Christian music that I covered at that time. And once I started covering more mainstream entertainment, I did have some contacts where I thought it might be possible. But at the time, Michael was not. He was not even. He was not in the public eye anymore at that point. So then, because I work from home, most of the time I don't have the television on, and on that particular day that they announced the O2 press conference, I just happened to have the television on. I happened to hear it, walked by, said, okay, I've got to check this out. And I was so surprised to hear that he was coming back, that he was doing a tour. I wanted to see what he looked like. I wanted to see what this was all about, and I started, I watched a little bit of it, I caught a little bit, and what went through my mind was, okay, maybe this is it, maybe this is going to be the opportunity to do this interview. And though it was a very slim opportunity, in my opinion, I was hoping that some of my contacts might have helped me to get to the right people where possibly I could talk to Michael and do an interview with him, because I always wanted to tell his story the right way, and that's what I was hoping to do. So I started mentally making a list of people that I could contact to see if, kind of going through the grapevine, I could get to the right people and try to set something up. And I feel that was kind of placed on me for a reason at that point, now looking back. And that was March, and I was making this mental list. I got to June 25th. You know, there was other things going on in my life. I needed to get going on making these contacts, and it kind of went out of my mind for a little bit. And I was on Facebook June 25th, and started seeing coming across the home screen page, you know, that Michael had been taken to the hospital under cardiac arrest. My first thought was, oh my gosh, you know, I knew he was training, you know, for this upcoming tour. It seemed kind of unbelievable to me, but I thought, well, maybe it's a rumor. And it wasn't too long after that reports started flying around on Facebook that Michael had died. And I remember thinking, no, this isn't true. It's not confirmed. I was very much in denial about it. And my husband came home a little while later, and when he walked in the house, he said, "Did you hear that Michael Jackson died?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard that, but I don't think it's true. It's a rumor. It hasn't been confirmed. You know, this was just on Facebook." And he said, "No, I heard it on the news. It's official. He passed." And I still couldn't believe it. Just like all of you, I was in shock. I didn't know what to think. I remember thinking, how did this happen? I was so certain in my mind that I was going to be, that there was even if it was a minuscule chance, it was a chance that I might be able to finally do this interview with him. And I couldn't believe that had just gone through my mind just a few short months earlier, and suddenly he was gone. And that kind of started something that I know most of you have gone through, where for, days, it turned into weeks, turned into months of crying all the time. And it was as if a family member had died. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why I was feeling that way. I had always felt a deep connection to him, even when I was young. I never fully understood why, and I know some of you have explained that you've felt the same. And it went from that to feeling so intensely sad and in a state of disbelief. And probably within a few short days, there was, of course, a lot of comments being made on Facebook about Michael Jackson and about his death. And some of them were very, very unkind. Some of them were on my personal page. And looking back on that now, I kind of am thankful in a way that I had to deal with that, because in doing so, it encouraged me. It gave me a spark that I had to do something. I went from thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to possibly be able to interview him with this upcoming tour, to all of a sudden he's gone. And I knew in my heart he had never done those things, that he was innocent. He had never, all the accusations of molestation that came against him, I knew that they were not true. And yet, as I've said many times before, I did not have the intense knowledge about Michael that most of the diehard fan base did. I loved his music. He inspired me in so many ways. He inspired me as a dancer. He inspired me as a singer. I was in choir growing up, so I don't profess to be a great singer. But just as a creative person, he inspired me so much to think outside the box, to believe that you could do whatever you set your heart to, whatever you were passionate about. And so that always stood with me. And being surrounded all the time by all of the things that were being said in the media is really, really difficult. And so that was there, that was always hanging over my head. But when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I was going to do something. That was all that was in my mind. It was like, okay, you've got to do something. And I started talking with my husband, and I said, I've got to do something. People are saying horrifying things, and I need to somehow do something to get the truth out there, because I knew that what was being said wasn't true. And, different suggestions came at me. Write a book, do this, do that. But having created some websites in the past, either for myself or for friends who have businesses and things like that, I decided that was going to be probably the best way to go, because I did have some experience in it, and by no ways or means a professional, web designer. But I knew my way around a little bit on how to create a site, and I felt that here was a way that people from all over could access it. It would be free. It could go wherever anyone who had internet access was. And so probably within 1 to 2 weeks after he passed, I was in the creation process of Reflections on the Dance, which at that time did not have a name. So I just started creating it, and started looking into it, and started researching. And one of the things that I did was I approached it as a person who I had to be open to whatever I found out about Michael. And though I believed in my heart that he had never done those things, I believed in my heart what kind of person he was. I came across, as many of you have, some really, really awful things on the internet about him. And it very quickly became clear that these were false. But I had to approach it with an eye to say, to prove that it was false. And that was a little bit scary to go through, because I didn't know for sure what I was going to find. And without going into too much detail over the creation of Reflections, I wanted to kind of give you the basic of it, which is that the creation of Reflections was a very, very spiritual process. And I know that might sound odd to some. It might come across strangely, I don't know. But it's true. And the first couple, in the beginning when I first started doing it, I thought, okay, I'm doing this to prove that Michael was not the person that the media said he was. And that was my main focus. As the weeks started to go on, I realized this wasn't just me. This was something I was being called to do. I was passionate about it, and I wanted to do it with my whole heart, but there was also a sense of having to do it, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense or how weird that sounds, but it was as if I didn't have a choice. Not as if I was being forced, but as if this is a calling and this is what you need to do. Even my husband was amazed at all of that during that creation process, because it took me about 3.5 months to create the site. And I was pretty much sitting at this desk for 24 hours a day. And my husband was shocked, because by nature I'm a procrastinator. And he said to me several times, I cannot believe the dedication you have. I've never seen you like this before. and it's the truth. I've never was like that before, and I've never been like that again. But without sounding too strange, the reason I want to share this is